feeling?
Hey ho, heidi ho, people of Let's Play Land. Funny story, I got some explaining to do. About 25 minutes worth of footage was deleted in between the previous episode and this one, so we missed out on like a really cool dungeon with a boss at the end, but I mean, who cares, we'll just keep going. This is approximately where we were anyway. What does it matter? So, our lead character is a squid now. That definitely wasn't a thing previously. Many transformations took place in between the episodes, you see. So, once we get out of this excessively long, ordinary wild battle, I guess you could call it, our goal is we have to solve the desert maze, you see. There's a very specific pattern you have to do as you tread out into the sand. Wait, no, we're not at that part yet. Anyway, later on we're gonna have to solve the desert maze. The desert maze has been an issue that has plagued society for generations. Many people have come and gone over the centuries, and none of them have been able to solve it. That's what the Iraq War was about. I bet you didn't know that. You see, George Bush sent all of those troops to Iraq to go to an actual desert so that he could get some ideas on how to solve the desert maze in Final Fantasy Legends 2 for the Game Boy. Yeah, that's what Iraq was really about. All that stuff about the WMDs was just a cover. George Bush was just trying to beat a video game. Comedy! So anywho, for those of you actually paying attention to the game, you might have noticed that the ordinary enemies are suddenly a lot tougher than normal. They've really been knocking the crap out of my team as of late. Everybody's been down to 1 HP at the start of each of these battles. Final Fantasy Legends 2 for the Game Boy does not fuck around. See, look at that. 3 out of 4 characters all had just 1 HP. That's nasty. But yeah, I guess it was kind of a common thing for early RPGs to just have a sudden difficulty spike due to the developers kinda screwing up the balancing. Ooh, we can buy a stun gun. We can roleplay as a very aggressive police officer at a traffic stop. Fun, fun, fun. Anyway, but speaking of games that were balanced improperly, Pokemon Crystal definitely had a very poorly balanced endgame because all the wild Pokemon, all the way up through a Victory Road, the highest level wild Pokemon you could encounter was at level 33. And then most of the trainers in Victory Road had Pokemon that were close to level 50. Or sorry, the Elite Four trainers had Pokemon that were close to level 50. And so you had to do a lot of grinding to finally get caught up. You just have to slay just wave after wave after wave of level 33 Ursaring before you could finally take on the Elite Four. You know, people complain about Game Freak being incompetent and making poor decisions these days, but I guess in some respects it was always like that, even in the old games. Okay, we're gonna put armor on our squid. What a silly visual. Okay, so, I'd say, you're not supposed to be here. This is supposed to be the safe zone. There are no people like you within these borders. As they said in Dragon Ball Z Abridged, this is supposed to be a place of fun. But yeah, that definitely subverts the usual RPG trope, the fact that the wild enemies can still attack you from within the confines of the safe town. Alright, new form, let's go. Goblin, huh? Don't tell Jontron. He was never a big fan of goblins.
Ew, I like them. I like goblins. Ah!
So anywho, these 3 doofuses try to give you advice on how to solve the desert maze, but the issue is they each give you a different direction. As you can see, one says south, one says east, and what have you. but at least we can put on a jaunty tune. Anywho, so the refreshments that this goblin sells you don't really seem to have any meaningful impact on the game, as far as I can tell. That they don't restore your health, and they also don't add an item to your inventory. So I don't know if he's just shoving the money into his goblin pockets and then handing you nothing in return, or what's going on there. But he is the one person in this tavern who actually knows how to solve the desert maze. So now that we have the proper advice, it's off into the desert we go. Heave her up and away we go, along the plains of Mexico. I tend to fall back on that line a little too often. So, anyway, looking back on this playthrough, I really shouldn't have eaten that one piece of meat that was at the very start of this series. These monster transformations really don't seem to be beneficial in any meaningful way. They really just seem to be a hindrance. I mean, because, AVGN is the resident monster transformer, I guess you could say, and he seems to go down in every single battle. I mean, he's got 31 HP while everyone else has got 100 plus. I mean, we've got 4 party members, but in actuality, I'd say we only have 3 in terms of members who can be used practically. If I could do it all over, I would definitely avoid the meats. But there's some way to upgrade them, and I couldn't quite figure out what that was. I thought it was just a matter of, if you just leveled up your character enough that you'd get a new monster form that was more powerful and useful, but that never really seemed to happen. But maybe that's because I kept switching the form too often, so I was maybe resetting some kind of statistic. Perhaps that's what happened, but either way, this is a very poor playthrough. I must say, all you Final Fantasy purists out there are turning up your noses in disgust. But anyway, let's just press on. Since it's just one zombie, this shouldn't be overly... Yeah, see? Just like that. To tell you the truth, I'm not really sure how much farther we can get in this game, considering how 1/4 of our party is just permanently handicapped. And then the fact that he keeps getting knocked out in every single battle too, I think that might be preventing him from getting any experience. So this issue really just seems to be getting worse with time. This is quite the pickle. So, this fantastical space realm that we're in, by the way, this was a plot point that came up in some of the footage that was deleted. This is basically like the door between worlds, I guess you could call it. Because we actually traveled from the first world to the second in between episodes. See, now we're back in the first one. See, we've got some very familiar looking enemies now. So yeah, it's pretty clear to see that we're not even supposed to be in this area, because these are World 1 enemies, and we're supposed to be in World 2. I'm just kinda wasting your time at this point, aren't I? But aren't Let's Plays just totally a waste of time, just in their totality? I mean, when you really look at it when you take a step back and look at it as a whole, you realize the whole thing's a waste of time and not just this one segment where we're not making any progress. And then if you take a step back even further than that, you realize that life itself is just one giant collection of wasting your time. But let's not get existential on this Let's Play channel. That's not what the people came here for. So, I guess the only logical path to take from here is to get back out of magical Space Vineland and try to get back to that tavern. The tavern being the place where we were 10 minutes ago at the start of this episode. God, what are we even doing? We have not made any progress this entire time. The net movement from where we were at the start is 0.
0, 0, 0!
Well, not even that. It's a negative number. We're actually farther back than we should be. We've been going the wrong way. Okay, so here's approximately where we were. Let's try to solve that desert maze. Hopefully this doesn't carry on into the next episode. I say as if I've got some kind of insider information. So, how about that chicken enemy on the right there? Kinda looks like well, there he goes, but anyway, he kinda looked like a discount chocobo of sorts. I don't know why they didn't just put actual chocobos in this game. They very easily could have done so. I mean, chocobos had already been introduced into Final Fantasy lore at this point. They were first introduced in Final Fantasy II for the NES. That is a Japanese Final Fantasy II and not American Final Fantasy II. Because you know how the numbers got screwed up in the early days, so what was Final Fantasy IV for them was 2 for us, and then they went back and retconned the numbers later, and it's all so horribly confusing. But anyway, the point I'm trying to say is chocobos were a thing at this point in the series' history, and they easily could have had one, instead of just generic chicken enemies. Or eagles, rather. But I don't think you really fight chocobos at any point in Final Fantasy, so I guess that might have been a bit brutish. A bit brutish, I meant to say. Gotta enunciate, don't slur your words, you're not a stroke victim. What else was I gonna say? For some reason on GameSpot back in the day, the word chocobos was on their list of banned words for whatever reason. Well, what the hell happened? I wasn't looking. Oh, I guess we died. Whoopsie. But thankfully, the big tall man won't allow that to happen. But anyway, what I was getting at was GameSpot used to have like a secret list of banned words that just wouldn't appear in your posts if you tried to type them, and they never actually told you what any of the words were, so you had to figure it out by trial and error. And for some reason, chocobos was one of the banned words. I was on a Final Fantasy forum at one point, and I was trying to say something about chocobos, and the word just disappeared from the post, so it would just say like, hey, does anybody know how to get to the part with the blank, and there's just nothing after that, just, does anybody know how to get to the part with the period? That was the end of it. I don't get why it was like that. Maybe one of the programmers who designed the GameSpot website was more of a Dragon Quest type of guy, and he didn't want people talking about Final Fantasy. Speaking of Dragon Quest, you guys see that asshole composer finally died? I mean, it's never a good thing when anybody dies, but I mean, as far as the future of the Dragon Quest franchise, I mean, I think that's going to be a bit of a step up, because we finally won't have that racist old man deliberately making worse versions of his music for the non-Japanese version because he hates white people. Those days are finally over. So yeah, hopefully we'll finish the desert maze next episode, I guess. We basically just fucked around for 15 minutes in this one, but there's always tomorrow.